On Friday, Sussan Ley was deposed as opposition leader, replaced by Angus Taylor. But a lot of noise is being made about the fact the Liberal Party dropped their first female leader in just 9 months. Instead of focusing on her track record as leader, a lot of the focus has been about her gender. Now, in the age of equality, I have to ask why her sex is even being discussed. But it sure is being discussed. Here's Sarah Hanson-Young calling out the perceived sexism on the ABC. This was posted on her TikTok account.
Fantastic, good move. Well done, Angus. Cutting down the first female leader of the Liberal Party.
How did Julia Gillard go?
Atrocious.
How did Julia Gillard go?
Well, they shouldn't have done that either, Kevin. And parties get marked down for it. Okay. I think this is an absolute disgrace of the Liberal Party, and no wonder their vote's in the toilet.
Hang on. So their votes are in the toilet while Sussan Ley was the leader. Was that an anticipation that she was going to get dropped? That makes no sense whatsoever. The polls under Sussan Ley have been terrible. I've said it here on this show that it cannot go on under her leadership. The Liberal Party have done the right thing by replacing her. Now, have they chosen the right leader? Time will tell. I'll tell you, I quite like Jane Hume. I think she's a potential future leader. But it's not just Sarah Hanson-Young. Labor also played the gender card to throw a punch at the Libs.
It looks to me like in the modern Liberal Party, an incompetent bloke beats a woman any day of the week, and the only real qualification for leadership is XY chromosomes.
A very well-rehearsed line. She delivered it perfectly, but it just doesn't stack up. Was Sussan Ley sacked because she's a woman or because the party wasn't performing under her? I'd argue the party wasn't performing under her. And there may be many reasons why. Maybe she wasn't given enough time. Maybe people behind the scenes were backstabbing her. Doesn't matter. Polls speak volumes. But it's not just politicians making gender an issue. So is the media. The BBC's Australian-based reporter, Tiffany Turnbull, she questions whether Australian politics still has a problem with women. And Sky News' media show ran a montage of questions from journalists playing up this very issue. Have a look.
You will have brought down the Liberal Party's first female leader. Does that weigh heavily on you?
What do you make of Sussan Ley's performance, her treatment, including by her colleagues, and the prospect of the Liberal Party rolling their first female leader?
Bringing everyone together.
The party has an optical issue with women, especially given you've all just taken out your first and only woman leader.
You know, I think this is really embarrassing for Sussan Ley that women are playing the gender card about her being deposed as opposition leader. They're not basing it on her merits. They're saying she should have been given more time because she's a woman. You know, all these proclamations that it took 80 years for the Liberals to get a woman, but 9 months to dump her. You haven't got the right leader. You haven't got the right leader. And by the way, coming off that election, it was very likely that no one who took over the Liberal leadership immediately was going to last to the next election. That is just a fact. She put her hand up. She knew the risks. Maybe she was hoping she could prove them wrong, but she didn't. We know One Nation has surged in the polls. A poll out today on the SMH and The Age has them equal with the coalition. Newspoll has seen the One Nation party above the coalition. The simple fact is, the Liberals are panicking because One Nation is surging. And when you're panicking, you look at the leader. Is she delivering? Has she delivered? Well, no, she hasn't. But I'm going to ask you, have I got this wrong? Well, let's bring in another perspective. So for some insights on the issue, I'm joined by former New South Wales Liberal leader, Kerry Chikarovski. Kerry, welcome to McKnight Tonight.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a delight to be here.
Oh, a delight with McKnight. You're welcome anytime. Kerry, was the dumping of Sussan Ley a gender issue?
Look, I don't actually think it was a gender issue. I think what it was the result of the people in the Liberal Party not giving her a good enough go. They didn't really give her a chance. I mean, from the day she got elected, I think there were people undermining her. And I don't think that it was a question of whether she couldn't perform because she was a woman or not. I think it was more a question that she struggled because almost at every turn there was someone who was deciding that they didn't want her there, and so they were working their butt off to get rid of her. And I don't think it was because she was a woman, as I said. I think it was more because people were very disappointed in the result of that election, and they were very unhappy with the fact that Angus lost by so few votes. So I think there were people who were actively working against her, and I think that was what the issue was.
Two things on that. The first, isn't that just politics?
Yeah, but I mean, new leaders, particularly after an election loss like that, they deserve clear air. And I think if you actually watched Sussan's press conference when she resigned from the parliament, she actually referred to the fact that she didn't say she didn't get clear air, but she said that she hoped that the new leader would get clear air. And there was no honeymoon period for her. Almost from day one, people on her own side, I believe, were leaking against her, were making life difficult. And of course, it was not very much long after the election that she had the drama with the Nats. So it's been a very, very torrid time for her. And I think the real message for the Liberal Party and the coalition moving forward is, okay, you've got a new leader, you've got a new team, you've got a new female deputy. It's time to shut up and put up. You need to stop talking about each other behind, backgrounding journalists, people like yourself. They've got to stop doing that sort of stuff. They've actually got to work together and present a cohesive team and a cohesive policy agenda to the Australian public. Now, I'm not one of these people who thinks it's impossible for them to claw back. I actually do think that there is a strong foundation for the Liberal Party. People know that the Liberal Party stands for good economic management, they stand for strong borders, and they stand for increasing people's quality of life. So they stick to those sort of agenda items, and I think they're actually going to make progress. It won't be quick, but I do think they'll make progress.
The second part in your answer related to the length of time she was given, but you understand why the Libs got panicked, basically, with the polling for One Nation being through the roof. Just today, they're equal in the SMH and the Age with the coalition. Newspoll had them ahead. They are genuinely worried about One Nation. How much time do you give it when your polling is going down?
And I appreciate that, because I was someone who was subject to some pretty dire polling at various stages in my political career. I understand how much people pay attention to it. I love the fact that every politician you will ever have on your show or on any media anywhere else will always say, oh, we never pay attention to the polls.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, you and I know that's both rubbish, right? That's just complete rubbish that they don't pay attention. So I do think that, it was an issue. But again, I go back to the fact that had it been a team working together, working towards putting out policy, working towards engaging with the community, then you probably wouldn't have had those numbers. I mean, one of the reasons why Pauline's doing as well, and all power to her, she's doing amazingly well, is because Pauline Hanson has been consistent in her policy objectives for almost 30 years. So people know, they know what she stands for, they know what she believes in, they know what she would do if she ever had the opportunity. The problem for the Liberal Party over the last 9 months is that they've been such a rabble that people haven't had a clear view of what any of those things are. What are your policies? What do you stand for? Who do you believe in? What do you believe in? None of that's happened. So I think that's why they ended up with the polls they had. You can't put all that onto Sussan. I don't think that's fair. It is a team effort. In spite of what people might say, people out there need to be talking as a team, and I think that didn't happen. So that's the opportunity for Angus and Jane, because they can now hopefully bring the team together, talk as a team, and convince the Australian public that they're worthy of being given a chance.
And she's certainly not being sidelined in this. She is front and centre in interviews. Today, she was on the Today Show with him. Let me ask you then, I showed some clips earlier in my editorial. Do you think the gender issue is being overplayed by political opponents and the media?
Well, it certainly will be overplayed by the Labor Party. I mean, they're not going to let the Liberal Party forget that, what they've done to Sussan. But I mean, to be fair, I noticed when they launched that sort of attack in the Parliament the other day, before the vote was even held, there was a fair bit of snickering on the backbench on the coalition side, and there was quite a few interjections about, what did you do to Julia? How many of you over there supported Julia? So they're a little bit like glass houses with this issue. I can understand others, more minor parties taking a stand about it, but I don't know that that's going to last much for very long in a political sense. The media, I think, will also tire of it because what they're really interested in is how well Angus and Jane can do.
And will the party perform better under Angus Taylor?
One can only hope so.
What do you think of the fact? What do you think of the fact Susan is quitting Parliament, forcing a by-election?
Look, I'm not going to criticise anyone for doing that. I think she has had an extraordinary political career. She's been a true servant of this country. She's worked her arse off in all sorts of ways, both as a minister, as a backbencher, as the leader of the opposition. And I think if she's tired and if she wants to take some time for her and the family, I think that's okay. I do actually think the more interesting question is what sort of test is that for Angus? Because it's been a Liberal seat now for, I think, 25 years. It was a Nat seat before that. We already know that there's going to be an independent put up their hand. We know that One Nation are going to put up their hand. The question for me will be whether the Labor Party are just going to leave them all to it and they don't bother running a candidate, which I suspect might be the case. But it will be a test for Angus to see whether he can win that seat. And he's also got to work out whether he can do a deal with the National Party because they're going to want to put their hand up for that seat as well. So it'll be a very interesting, I think, four-way contest. I'm not including the Labor Party. I don't think they're going to be much of a force in that electorate. Yeah,
it's the first big test for him. Hey, when you were ousted as leader, and I'm sorry to come back to this issue, but it is the talking point. Hey, you had 4 years, right? So you did better than Susan.
Absolutely.
Do you think you were replaced because of sexism in the party, or was it other issues?
Well, I have a view, which I expressed in a book that I wrote, that I had people much like Susan who had been working against me for a considerable period of time. I had people who purported to be friends and on my side, who I've subsequently found out had actually been backgrounding the media against me for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, actually, Rob, when it all happened, I went home on the Monday night and my children said to me, who's done this? Who's orchestrated this against you? And when I told them, they said, but we thought they were your friends. I mean, these were people who had been, constantly ringing me, telling me I was doing a good job, all that sort of stuff. And they were the people who walked into my office and told me I had to leave. So I do think it's got more to do with often personal ambition and a lot less to do with gender.
Yeah, so there's no need for gender quotas or anything like that?
Look, I've always said no. We don't need quotas, but I must say, I'm getting on and I'm getting pretty old. I've been around a long time and I've probably got to the stage now where I think they should be looking at them, mainly because, we always talk about merit. We always talk about, doing the right thing by the community, putting up people who are genuinely capable and competent. But I do remember at one stage someone saying to me, we'll have true equality in this country when we finally have a mediocre Prime Minister who's female, as we've had mediocre Prime Ministers who are men. And I think, there's an element of truth in that statement because, women are often in politics they don't have to be good, they don't have to be great, they have to be outstanding. And I think that's still the case. And that's still the case when we're trying to get them into Parliament. So I do think we need at this stage to give them a bit of a leg up. I do actually think that the women we pre-select will be outstanding. I'm not saying they won't be, but I do think it's got to the stage now where I'm tired of waiting for the gender balance to get to the stage where it is actually fairly representative of our community.
Well, before I let you go, I should let everyone know and declare that you and I worked together on Studio 10. I loved you on the panel. I loved hearing your views on things. So I do appreciate you coming on tonight on McKnight Tonight. Kerry Chikarovski, you're a legend. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it was my absolute pleasure. I'm happy to do it with you again sometime. I'm sure we'll find other things we can talk about.
I'll take you up on that. Thanks, Chica.
Okay.
The best place to watch McKnight Tonight is on YouTube. Help us monetize the show by going to youtube.com/@McKnight Tonight. And you can always become a paid member. That gives you exclusive live streams and early access to videos. Just go to youtube.com/@McKnight Tonight.